They say a home is supposed to be your safest place. But that night, the walls closed in like a vice, and safety was the last thing I felt. I had whispered his name, not in prayer, not in fear, but in longing. And when the door creaked open and his silhouette filled my doorway, the unthinkable happened. My stepfather, Anthony, stood there, staring. And he didn't turn away. Thanks for stopping by. Please subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories like this. My name is Anderline, and I'm 22 years old. I live in a quiet, ivy-draped suburb in New Jersey, in a house far too clean, far too big, and far too full of secrets. Angela, my stepmother, is the kind of woman who smells like expensive orchids and walks like her heels never touch the ground. She married Anthony 5 years ago after her second divorce, and they built an empire together. Their days are filled with board meetings and jet-setting, their nights with business dinners and polished smiles. They never had kids of their own. They had me, by default. My real mom, Rose, lives 2 states away and still calls every week. She tells me she loves me in every phone call, and I believe her, but her love always feels like a voicemail I missed a decade ago. My father, John, disappeared when I was 9. Walked out one morning and never came back. No note. No closure. Just a mug in the sink and a fading scent of wood smoke and cologne. I moved into Anthony and Angela's home after college, just until I could figure things out. But months passed. Then a year. And here I was, an invisible tenant in a home I didn't ask to be part of, holding on to a version of myself I wasn't sure I liked anymore. And then there was Anthony. At first, he treated me like some distant niece, civil, detached, kind in the way CEOs are kind when cameras are on. But things started to shift the year I turned 21. I noticed how long his eyes lingered when I passed him in shorts. How he'd find reasons to be home alone with me. How his hand would graze my lower back just a second too long. Harmless, I told myself. Just my imagination. But my body knew before my brain did. I started having dreams. Vivid ones. Ones where he pressed me up against kitchen counters, whispered my name like it was a secret he'd never dare speak out loud. I'd wake up flushed, ashamed, wet. And most disturbing of all, I didn't want it to stop. That night, Angela was in Chicago for a conference. Anthony had stayed behind for a deal closing. The house was too quiet. I sat in my room, door locked, blinds drawn, heart racing like a drum in my throat. The heat pooled between my legs. I didn't move. Not because I couldn't, but because I didn't want to. He stood there, tall in the doorway, his tie loosened, his chest rising and falling like he had just sprinted up the stairs. For a moment, neither of us spoke. There was only the hum of the air conditioner and the slow, burning realization that something irreversible was happening. Anthony stepped into the room and shut the door behind him with a soft click. My hand was still inside my underwear, the air heavy with the scent of lust and guilt. He walked closer, eyes fixed on me like he was memorizing every detail, my parted lips, my flushed cheeks, my breathless chest. I should have screamed. I should have covered myself, pulled the blanket over me, said, "What the hell are you doing?" But I didn't. "I heard you," he said. His voice was low, controlled, like a man used to getting what he wants. "You said my name." I blinked, chest tightening. "I didn't mean to." "You did." He sat at the edge of my bed, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something sharp and masculine that made my stomach twist. "Tell me the truth, Anderline. You think about me." I looked away. My silence was an answer. "I think about you too," he murmured, his hand moving to brush a strand of hair behind my ear. "More than I should." His fingertips traced the line of my jaw, slow and deliberate. I shivered, not from fear, but from heat. Shame. Want. "I know this is wrong," I whispered. "It is," he said. "But you still want it, don't you?" Tears welled in my eyes, but not from pain. From how badly I'd fantasized about this, how twisted it was that the man my mother married, the man who tucked her into bed and sat across from me at dinner, was now here, breathing on my skin, making my body betray every moral boundary I'd ever known. "I'm not a child," I said. "You don't have to treat me like one." His lips brushed my neck, featherlight. "You're not a child," he agreed. "But you're not mine either." In the silence that followed, he let his hand slip down. His fingers replaced mine. And I let him. My breath hitched as he moved expertly, as if he'd memorized every soft, aching part of me without ever touching me before. My legs trembled. I pressed my forehead to his chest, biting down on a moan I didn't want to let loose. And when the heat broke inside me, I shook so hard I thought I might fall apart. He held me after. Not like a lover. Not like a stepfather. Like something else. Something dark. Dangerous. Real. When it was over, he stood and fixed his tie. "Go to sleep," he said, like it was just another night. He left without looking back. The door clicked shut. I was alone again. But I wasn't the same. That night, I didn't cry. I stared at the ceiling and ran my fingers across the pillow where his scent still lingered. This wasn't a mistake. Not yet. But it would. Sunlight poured through the blinds like judgment. I hadn't slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Anthony, his mouth, his hands, the way he'd walked out like nothing had happened. Like I was still just a stepdaughter. Like he hadn't just ruined me. I stared at my ceiling for hours, heart hollow. The shame came in waves. Then the wanting. Then the shame again. A cycle that chewed through my insides like acid. Angela was due back from Chicago that afternoon. I could already hear the ticking clock in my head. How many hours until she walked in through the front door, kissed her husband, and asked about me? I should have packed. I should have left. Instead, I went downstairs like a ghost. The kitchen smelled of bacon and fresh coffee. Anthony was at the stove, shirt sleeves rolled, flipping eggs like a goddamn Norman Rockwell painting. He looked up and smiled. "Morning, sweetheart." Sweetheart. My stomach turned. "Morning," I mumbled, sitting down. I didn't meet his eyes. He brought me a plate like nothing had happened. Like my thighs hadn't been open for him the night before. Like he hadn't stolen something sacred and left me with silence. "Angela's flight lands at 3, he said, sipping his coffee. "Let's keep last night between us." I looked up, finally, the words choking my throat. "You think this was nothing?" "No," he said. "I think it was everything, which is exactly why it needs to stay secret." I slammed my fork down. "You're my stepdad, Anthony. And you're not a child, Anderline. You wanted it. I saw it in your eyes. I felt it in your body. That doesn't make it right." He leaned in, voice dropping. "Right and wrong don't matter when no one knows. Do you want Angela to find out? Do you want to break her?" My stomach flipped. My mother had already been broken by men. By John. By life. She didn't need this. But what about me? That night wasn't the last time. It was the first. It became a pattern. A dark, secret ritual. Every time Angela traveled, he found his way into my room. Sometimes I resisted. Sometimes I wanted it so badly, I left the door unlocked. But afterward, I always lay awake and asked myself the same thing. Who am I becoming? And then, something I never expected happened. I started falling for him, not just in lust, but in longing, for the way he touched me when no one else dared. For the way he looked at me like I was more than just a shadow in their perfect home. It was twisted. Sick. But it felt like the first time someone truly saw me. One evening, I found him sitting on the patio, drink in hand, gazing out at the garden. Angela was away. Again. I stepped outside and sat beside him. "Are you ever going to leave her?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. His eyes didn't move. "What makes you think I'd ever leave what we have?" I swallowed. "Because what we have is a lie." He looked at me, his smile bitter. "So is marriage. So is family. The only truth is what happens behind closed doors. I stood. Then I'm opening the door, Anthony, because I can't live behind it anymore. He didn't stop me. He didn't say a word. The next morning, I packed my things. I didn't leave a note. Didn't look back. I moved in with Rose. Told her I needed time to figure things out, and she didn't press. Just held me and said, whatever it is, you'll survive it. But I didn't feel like a survivor. I felt like a girl who'd let herself be used and called it love. A girl who whispered his name in the dark and lost herself when he answered. Now, every time I hear a man in a tailored suit, every time I smell that sharp cologne, I remember that night. The night my stepdad breezed into my room. And the unthinkable happened. Have you heard or experienced a similar stories? Please subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.